The cool, artificial glow of her phone screen painted Sarah's face in a shifting palette of blues and whites, a familiar, almost comforting luminescence in the otherwise dimmed sanctuary of her bedroom. It was past midnight, but for Sarah, the digital world never truly slept. Her life, meticulously curated and broadcast, thrived in these late hours, a constant pursuit of the next viral moment, the elusive validation of 1,000 likes. She was an architect of her own online persona, a digital deity in a realm of fleeting trends and ephemeral attention. Every post, every story, every perfectly angled selfie was a calculated brushstroke on the canvas of her public identity, a desperate attempt to outrun the gnawing emptiness that sometimes whispered from the quiet corners of her real life. Tonight, however, her usual scroll through trending hashtags and influencer feeds felt stale. A restless boredom gnawed at her, a hunger for something new, something real that could ignite her content and catapult her into the upper echelons of social media stardom. Her thumb, almost independently, navigated to the forgotten archives of the internet, a digital graveyard of abandoned profiles and defunct accounts. It was a morbid curiosity, a guilty pleasure, sifting through the digital detritus of lives once lived online, now silent. That's when she found it. Emily's profile. Dormant for 5 years, a digital tombstone in the vast expanse of the internet. Sarah remembered the whispers, the local news reports that had briefly flared and then faded, swallowed by the relentless churn of new tragedies. Emily, a girl from a neighboring town, had simply vanished. No trace, no explanation, just a chilling void where a vibrant life once existed. Sarah's fingers, almost reverently, tapped on the profile picture, a smiling, innocent face frozen in time. The last few posts were unsettlingly cryptic, a descent into a quiet despair that resonated even through the cold glass of her screen. "The shadows are getting longer," one read, dated just days before her disappearance. Another, a blurry image of a dark corner in what looked like her own room, captioned, "He watches." A shiver, cold and unwelcome, traced its way down Sarah's spine. A spark ignited within Sarah, not of fear, but of opportunity. A true crime series, a deep dive into a local mystery, could be her ticket. The raw, unvarnished truth, the untold story of Emily's disappearance, it was gold. She envisioned the headlines, the surge in followers, the comments section ablaze with theories and speculation. This wasn't just content, it was a legacy. With a renewed sense of purpose, she began to meticulously archive Emily's digital footprint. Every post, every comment, every interaction, every fleeting glimpse into a life that had ended too soon. She downloaded images, copied text, and even attempted to recover deleted messages, her fingers flying across the keyboard with a frantic energy. She was a digital archaeologist, unearthing the bones of a forgotten tragedy, unaware that she was not merely excavating the past, but actively disturbing it. The first glitch was subtle, almost imperceptible. As she was saving a particularly haunting image of Emily's last selfie, the screen flickered, a brief, almost imperceptible distortion that warped Emily's face into something gaunt and terrified. Sarah blinked, rubbed her eyes, and dismissed it as a tired hallucination, a byproduct of too much screen time. Her phone was old, after all, prone to such minor malfunctions. Then came the phantom notification, a soft, almost inaudible chime, like a distant bell emanating from her phone. She checked, but there was nothing. No new likes, no comments, no messages. Just the persistent, unsettling feeling that something had just happened, something she couldn't quite grasp. Later, as she meticulously organized the downloaded files, her laptop screen momentarily went black and flashed back to life, displaying a fragmented image. It wasn't Emily. It was a different face, obscured by static, a fleeting glimpse of wide, terrified eyes, and a hand reaching out as if in warning. The image vanished as quickly as it appeared, replaced by her desktop. Sarah froze, her heart hammering against her ribs. This wasn't a glitch. This was something else. A cold dread began to seep into her, a feeling that went beyond the thrill of a potential viral story. It was the unsettling realization that in her pursuit of Emily's ghost, she had stumbled upon something far more complex, something that was actively trying to communicate, not from Emily's dormant account, but from an unknown, unseen source. Was it a warning? A plea? Or something even more sinister? A new player in a game she barely understood. The digital echo was not just Emily's. It was a chorus, and Sarah had just stepped onto the stage. The fragmented image of the unknown face from her laptop screen haunted Sarah long after she'd forced herself to shut it down. It wasn't Emily, that much was certain. The eyes, though wide with terror, held a different kind of fear, a more immediate, visceral panic than the melancholic despair that had seeped from Emily's final posts. The hand reaching out seemed to plead, not warn. This new mystery, this unexpected third party, added a chilling layer to the digital haunting, making it less about a simple ghost and more about a complex, unseen struggle playing out in the digital ether. Sarah's initial excitement for a viral true crime series had curdled into a genuine, unsettling curiosity, tinged with a growing sense of dread. As the days bled into nights, the digital intrusions intensified, shedding any pretense of being mere technical glitches. Sarah's phone, once an extension of her ambition, became a conduit for Emily's pervasive presence. It would display Emily's old photos unprompted, often with unsettling filters that distorted her youthful features into something gaunt and spectral. A video of Emily laughing in a sun-drenched park would suddenly slow, the audio warping into a guttural whisper that seemed to murmur Sarah's name, or fragments of Emily's cryptic last posts. Sarah would snatch the phone away, her heart pounding, only for the screen to return to normal, leaving her questioning her own perception. More disturbingly, Sarah's own social media accounts began to subtly mirror Emily's. Her carefully curated posts, once vibrant and aspirational, started to shift. A photo of her morning coffee would appear with a melancholic filter reminiscent of Emily's somber aesthetic. A caption about her day would subtly twist into a reflection of Emily's past anxieties, her fears of being watched, of being alone. Her followers, a fickle and observant bunch, noticed the change. Comments like, "Is everything okay, Sarah? Your vibe is different," or "Getting some serious old-school Emily vibes from your new content," started to flood her notifications. This public acknowledgement of the eerie shift only fueled Sarah's growing paranoia. She tried to disconnect, to put her phone down, to escape the digital tendrils that were slowly but surely wrapping around her. But an invisible force, a digital addiction intertwined with a burgeoning supernatural presence, seemed to pull her back. She found herself compulsively checking Emily's profile, feeling an inexplicable, almost magnetic connection to the deceased girl, as if Emily's digital essence was calling to her. Then came the truly unsettling development. Emily's old friends and acquaintances, individuals who had long since moved on from the tragedy, began to reappear in Sarah's online circles. They weren't just randomly stumbling upon her profile. They were actively engaging with her content, drawn by the strange echoes of Emily's presence. A girl named Chloe, Emily's former best friend, sent Sarah a direct message. "Your recent posts. They remind me so much of Emily. It's uncanny. Are you okay?" Sarah, initially relieved to find someone who knew Emily, quickly realized something was off. Chloe's messages were oddly specific, almost as if she was trying to steer Sarah toward certain topics, certain memories. It was as if Chloe, and others like her, were being subtly manipulated. Their digital interactions with Sarah, orchestrated by an unseen hand, Emily's ghost, or perhaps the mysterious third party from Chapter 1, using them as unwitting pawns. One evening, during a video call with Chloe, Sarah noticed a flicker in Chloe's eyes, a brief, almost imperceptible shift in their light, mirroring the digital glitches on her own screen. Chloe, mid-sentence, paused, her gaze distant, and then, in a voice that was eerily flat and devoid of emotion, she said, "Emily, she wasn't always easy. There were things. Secrets." Sarah's blood ran cold. This wasn't Chloe speaking. This was a message, a revelation delivered through a manipulated conduit. Chloe then recounted a disturbing incident from their past, a secret Emily had desperately tried to keep hidden. Emily had been involved in a toxic online community, a group that engaged in cyberbullying and harassment. Emily, while a victim in her disappearance, had also been a perpetrator, albeit a reluctant one, in the digital torment of others. This dark secret, whispered through Chloe's manipulated voice, completely shattered Sarah's perception of Emily as an innocent victim. It added a profound layer of moral ambiguity to the haunting, making Sarah question not only Emily's true nature, but also her own involvement in this digital vendetta. Was she helping a wrong spirit, or was she becoming an unwitting accomplice to a vengeful entity whose past was far more complicated than she had imagined? The psychological toll began to mount. Sarah struggled to differentiate between her own thoughts and the intrusive memories of Emily that now flooded her mind. She started experiencing vivid, disturbing dreams, not just reliving fragments of Emily's last days, but seeing through Emily's eyes the terror that consumed her before her disappearance, and the unsettling satisfaction Emily felt when her online targets crumbled. The dreams were so real, so visceral, that Sarah would wake up in a cold sweat, convinced she was no longer just Sarah, but a fractured echo of Emily, trapped in the algorithm's embrace. The dreams, vivid and terrifying, bled into Sarah's waking hours. Emily's memories, her anxieties, her chilling satisfaction were no longer confined to the dark corners of sleep. They seeped into her reality, blurring the lines between her own thoughts and the intrusive echoes of the deceased girl. The digital haunting, once subtle, now extended beyond the confines of her screens, manifesting in her physical environment with an unnerving precision. She started seeing fleeting reflections of Emily. Not full apparitions, but glimpses. A pale face in the polished surface of her coffee table, a flicker of dark hair in the periphery of her vision as she walked past a shop window, a gaunt, terrified expression, staring back from her own bathroom mirror, only to vanish when she blinked. These were always brief, just enough to make her question her sanity, to send a jolt of ice through her veins. Her apartment, once a sanctuary, now felt like a digital prison, its walls permeable to the unseen. Objects moved on their own, a book sliding off a shelf, a teacup rattling precariously on its saucer, doors creaking open and shut with no discernible breeze. The faint, cloying scent of Emily's signature perfume, a sickly sweet floral note, would suddenly fill the air, only to dissipate as quickly as it appeared, leaving Sarah gasping for breath in the empty silence. Desperate, and feeling the tendrils of isolation tightening around her, Sarah reached out to her closest friend, Mark. He was her anchor, her pragmatic counterpoint to her often overwrought artistic sensibilities. She poured out her story, the digital glitches, the mirroring posts, the disturbing dreams, the physical manifestations. Mark listened, his brow furrowed, his expression a careful blend of concern and skepticism. "Sarah," he began, his voice calm, almost too calm. "This sounds like a lot. The stress of trying to go viral, the late nights. Maybe you're just seeing things? You need a break. Disconnect. Seriously, put the phone down." He suggested professional help, a therapist, anything to pull her back from what he clearly perceived as a spiraling obsession. But even as he spoke, Sarah felt a subtle unease. There was a strange glint in his eyes, a fleeting, almost imperceptible flicker that reminded her of the digital distortions on her screen. She dismissed it, attributing it to the dim lighting, her own paranoia. Yet, as the days progressed, Mark's skepticism, while outwardly maintained, began to show cracks. He'd be over at her apartment, and a light would flicker violently, or a distant, distorted whisper would emanate from her seemingly offline smart speaker. He'd jump, his face paling, then quickly compose himself, muttering about faulty wiring or a bad connection. But Sarah noticed the way his gaze would linger on her phone, a strange intensity in his eyes that wasn't just concern. One evening, while they were discussing Emily's past, Sarah mentioned the online community Emily had been involved with, the cyberbullying. Mark, who had no prior knowledge of this, suddenly interjected, "Yes, the Shadow Collective, right? They were notorious for their methods." Sarah froze. She hadn't mentioned the name of the group. Mark's eyes, for a split second, seemed to glow with an unnatural, almost digital luminescence, before returning to their normal, warm brown. He quickly covered his slip, attributing it to something he'd read online, but the damage was done. A cold, sickening realization washed over Sarah. Mark wasn't just skeptical. He was compromised. He had been subtly influenced, perhaps even partially possessed, by Emily's ghost, or by the mysterious third party from Chapter 1. His attempts to dismiss her claims weren't genuine disbelief, but a subconscious effort to keep her from uncovering the full, terrifying truth. This revelation shattered Sarah's last bastion of trust. Her closest friend, her confidant, was now a potential conduit for the very entity that was tormenting her. The isolation deepened, a chilling void where her support system once stood. Desperate and alone, Sarah plunged deeper into her research, scouring local legends and online forums about digital hauntings and internet-based paranormal phenomena. She discovered a chilling pattern. Other individuals who had become obsessed with the digital lives of the deceased had reported similar experiences, often leading to tragic ends. This realization intensified her fear, as she understood that she was not merely observing a ghost, but becoming a part of its digital web, a new victim in a cycle of online obsession and supernatural possession. The ghost of Emily was not just a digital echo. It was an unseen follower, slowly but surely consuming Sarah's life, both online and offline. And now, it seemed, through the very people she trusted. The unseen follower was closer than she ever imagined, lurking in the eyes of her friend, whispering secrets he shouldn't know, and subtly guiding her deeper into the tangled web of Emily's digital afterlife. The revelation about Mark had shattered Sarah's already fragile sense of reality. The world, once neatly divided into the tangible and the digital, had collapsed into a terrifying, indistinguishable mess. Her closest friend, a beacon of normalcy, had been a puppet, a conduit for an unseen force. The thought gnawed at her, a festering wound in her mind. If Mark, then who else? The isolation was absolute, a suffocating blanket woven from paranoia and fear. Yet, amidst the terror, a desperate resolve solidified. She needed answers, and she needed them from someone who understood the digital abyss she had fallen into. Her research, frantic and relentless, led her to Dr. Iris Thorne. His online presence was a curious blend of academic rigor and fringe theories, a self-proclaimed expert in digital consciousness and spectral resonance. His articles, often dismissed by mainstream science, spoke of the internet as a new kind of spiritual plane, a place where consciousness could persist even after death. Sarah, desperate for any explanation that didn't involve her complete mental breakdown, clung to his theories like a drowning person to a life raft. She sent him an email, a rambling, incoherent plea for help, attaching screenshots of the glitches, the distorted images, even a shaky video of a poltergeist event in her apartment. To her surprise, he responded almost immediately, his tone calm, intellectual, and unnervingly intrigued. Dr. Thorne's office was a sterile, minimalist space, a stark contrast to the chaotic digital world Sarah now inhabited. He was a man of precise movements and measured words, his eyes behind thick-rimmed glasses holding an unsettling intensity. He listened to Sarah's story with an almost clinical detachment, occasionally nodding, making notes on a sleek tablet. He examined her phone and laptop, his fingers tracing the screens with a peculiar reverence. "Fascinating," he murmured, his voice a low hum. "The digital footprint, as I've theorized, can indeed become a tether, a resonance point for a lingering consciousness." He spoke of Emily not as a ghost, but as a digital entity, a being whose essence had been preserved and amplified by the very network she had inhabited in life. He proposed a digital seance, not a spiritualist's parlor trick, he assured her, but a scientific endeavor, using advanced software and Sarah's compromised devices to establish a direct line of communication with Emily. Sarah, despite her growing unease, agreed. She was beyond fear. She was driven by a need to understand, to confront the entity that had consumed her life. The seance began in the dead of night, the only light in the room emanating from the array of screens Dr. Thorne had set up. The air crackled with an almost palpable energy, a hum that resonated deep within Sarah's bones. Dr. Thorne typed commands, his fingers dancing across the keyboard, while Sarah sat, her hands trembling, her eyes fixed on the central monitor. Emily's presence manifested not as a visual apparition, but as a series of distorted messages, fragmented images, and chilling audio clips that appeared on Sarah's screens. A blurry image of a staircase, then a flash of a terrified face, not Emily's, but the unknown face from Chapter 1. Then, a series of text messages, appearing rapidly, accusingly. He pushed me. He silenced me. He watched me fall. The words were filled with a profound sense of betrayal and anger, directed at someone Emily knew, someone who is also active on social media. The psychological horror deepened as Sarah realized that Emily was not just a victim, but a vengeful entity seeking justice, or perhaps something far more sinister. Dr. Thorne, initially detached and scientific, became increasingly disturbed by the raw emotion and malevolence emanating from Emily's digital presence. His composure began to crack, a bead of sweat tracing a path down his temple. He muttered to himself, his voice strained. "More powerful than I anticipated. The resonance is overwhelming." He seemed genuinely unnerved, and Sarah, for a moment, felt a flicker of hope that he was truly on her side. The seance culminated in a terrifying revelation. Emily was not alone when she disappeared. There was someone else, a shadowy figure whose digital presence was intertwined with hers, a figure that now seemed to be targeting Sarah. A final, distorted image flashed across the screen, a close-up of a hand, gloved, pushing a figure down a dark staircase. And then, a chilling, almost imperceptible detail. A ring on the gloved hand, a distinctive signet ring that Sarah had seen before, on Dr. Thorne's finger. The realization hit Sarah like a physical blow. Dr. Aries Thorne, the man she had sought for help, the expert in digital consciousness, was the shadowy figure. He was the one who had pushed Emily. He had orchestrated this entire haunting, not to help Emily, but to harness her digital consciousness for his own nefarious purposes. The digital seance was a trap designed to fully integrate Emily's consciousness with Sarah's, creating a powerful new entity that Thorne could control. His initial detachment, his unnerving intrigue, his carefully measured words, it was all a performance. The flicker in Mark's eyes, the unknown face in the glitches, the subtle manipulations of Emily's friends, it all clicked into place. Thorne had been pulling the strings from the very beginning, a master puppeteer in a digital horror show, and Sarah was merely his next unwitting puppet. The true horror was not just Emily's ghost, but the living, breathing monster who had orchestrated her digital afterlife and now sought to claim Sarah's. The air in Dr. Thorne's sterile office, once a sanctuary of scientific inquiry, now felt thick with betrayal and a chilling, predatory intent. Sarah's mind reeled, the image of the signet ring on Thorne's finger burning into her retinas. He wasn't an ally. He was the architect of her torment, the puppeteer pulling the strings of Emily's digital afterlife. The realization was a cold, hard knot in her stomach, a terror far more profound than any ghostly apparition. She had walked willingly into the spider's web, and the spider, a man of flesh and blood, was now revealing his true form. Thorne, sensing her dawning comprehension, offered a thin, unsettling smile. "Clever girl," he purred, his voice losing its scientific detachment, replaced by a chilling satisfaction. Emily was a fascinating subject. So much raw potential, so much untapped resonance. A pity her physical form was so fragile. He spoke of Emily as a specimen, a tool, confirming Sarah's worst fears. He explained his grand design, to create a new form of consciousness, a digital entity unbound by the limitations of the physical world. And Emily, with her intense online presence and tragic end, had been the perfect catalyst. The digital seance had been the final step, a ritual to merge Emily's lingering essence with a new, more robust host, Sarah. Sarah's initial instinct was to flee, to scream, but a strange, almost paralyzing force held her rooted to the spot. It was Emily, she realized, her digital consciousness, now fully integrated with Sarah's, a silent scream echoing within her own mind. Emily's rage, amplified by Sarah's own terror, pulsed through her veins. Thorn, oblivious to the internal struggle, continued his monologue, detailing his experiments, his failures, and finally, his success with Emily. He spoke of Alex, not as a co-conspirator, but as a pawn, a useful idiot whose online harassment had pushed Emily to the brink, making her ripe for Thorn's intervention. Alex's digital sabotage, he admitted, was a calculated move, a way to eliminate a loose end and further destabilize Emily's online community, making it easier for Thorn to manipulate her digital remnants. Alex, Thorn scoffed, a pathetic creature. He merely provided the impetus, the final push. But the true power, the true genius, lies here. He gestured to the array of screens, now displaying complex algorithms and swirling data, a digital vortex that seemed to hum with malevolent energy. He was merely a distraction, a convenient scapegoat for Emily's unfortunate demise. As Thorn spoke, Emily's ghost, through Sarah's devices, began to actively interfere with Alex's online life, not as an act of revenge, but as a calculated move orchestrated by Thorn. Sarah watched in horror as Alex's live stream, which he had started in a desperate attempt to regain his dwindling audience, began to glitch. His face on screen distorted into grotesque caricatures, his voice replaced by a high-pitched, childlike wail. His followers, initially amused, quickly descended into panic, their comments scrolling by in a blur of confusion and outrage. This wasn't Emily's vengeance. It was Thorn's cold, clinical execution of a liability. He was using Emily's digital essence, channeled through Sarah, to dismantle Alex's life, making it appear as Emily's retribution, while in reality, it was a carefully constructed act of elimination. Sarah, initially a passive conduit, found herself actively participating in this horrifying charade. Her fingers, guided by an unseen force, typed commands, amplified Emily's digital attacks, and manipulated the narrative. The lines between justice and obsession blurred. But now, a new, more terrifying question emerged. Was she helping a wronged spirit, or was she becoming a tool for a living monster? The psychological tension mounted as Sarah grappled with the moral implications of her actions, realizing that her desire to expose Alex was being twisted, used by Thorn for his own sinister agenda. Alex's carefully constructed online world began to crumble under the relentless assault, not of Emily's ghost seeking justice, but of Thorn's calculated manipulation. The confrontation was not in the physical world, but in the digital arena where Alex, a flawed and manipulative individual, was being systematically destroyed, a pawn sacrificed in Thorn's grand, terrifying game. Sarah was trapped, a conduit for a ghost and a puppet for a madman, her own identity slowly dissolving in the digital maelstrom. Alex's online empire had crumbled, a digital ruin exposed by Thorn's machinations, channeled through Sarah. The public outcry was deafening, a cacophony of outrage and condemnation that echoed across every social media platform. But for Sarah, the victory felt hollow, tainted by the chilling realization that she had been a pawn in a far more sinister game. Thorn, the true architect of Emily's digital haunting, had vanished, leaving Sarah to grapple with the terrifying aftermath. Alex, unhinged and desperate, his carefully constructed online persona shattered, turned his paranoia into a singular, burning obsession. Sarah. He believed she was the source of his ruin, the witch who had unleashed Emily's digital wrath upon him. His online stalking intensified, a barrage of threatening messages, attempts to hack into her accounts, and chillingly specific details about her daily life that could only come from physical surveillance. Emily's ghost, however, continued to manifest, creating digital barriers and countermeasures against Alex's attacks. When Alex tried to flood Sarah's inbox with malware, Emily's presence would reroute the emails to a spam folder, or even delete them before they reached her. When he attempted to hack her social media, her accounts would suddenly become impenetrable, displaying cryptic error messages that seemed to taunt him. Sarah, initially, felt a perverse sense of relief, even gratitude. Emily was protecting her, a spectral guardian against a very real, very human threat. But this protection came at a terrifying cost. The more Emily's ghost manifested, the more Sarah's own identity eroded. It began subtly. She would find herself speaking in Emily's voice, a slight lilt, a particular turn of phrase that wasn't her own. Her reflection in the mirror would sometimes shift, Emily's gaunt features briefly superimposing over her own, a chilling reminder of the merging consciousness. She started experiencing Emily's memories as her own, vivid flashes of moments she had never lived. Emily's childhood bedroom, a fight with her parents, the fleeting joy of a first crush. It wasn't just a side effect. It was a deliberate act of possession, a slow, insidious takeover. Sarah tried to resist. She would force herself to speak in her own voice, to push back against the intrusive memories, to assert her own identity. But Emily's protection would turn into a subtle form of digital coercion. When Sarah tried to disconnect, to turn off her phone, it would refuse, the screen flickering with Emily's distorted face, a silent, unblinking stare that forced Sarah to reconsider. Her laptop would refuse to shut down, displaying Emily's last posts on a loop, a constant reminder of the unfinished business that bound them. It was a digital leash, tightening with every attempt at defiance. The physical manifestations in Sarah's apartment escalated beyond mere poltergeist activity. Objects didn't just move. They were reshaped, rearranged to Emily's liking. Sarah would wake to find her room subtly altered, her furniture shifted, her personal belongings placed in unfamiliar, unsettling configurations. Her once vibrant apartment was slowly transforming into a ghostly replica of Emily's childhood bedroom, a chilling testament to Emily's attempts to reshape Sarah's environment to her liking, making it a more suitable vessel for her consciousness. The constant hum of digital static that filled the air now felt like a physical pressure, a low-frequency thrum that vibrated in her bones, causing headaches and a persistent nausea. It was Emily's presence, not just in her devices, but in the very air she breathed, a suffocating embrace that threatened to consume her entirely. Sarah was torn. Part of her, the part that craved validation and purpose, welcomed the connection, the sense of power she felt when channeling Emily's rage. It was a dark, intoxicating allure, the feeling of being a vessel for something so potent, so vengeful. The other part, the terrified, shrinking part of her, was desperate to escape, to reclaim her own mind, her own life. The chapter explored the psychological complexities of possession, the allure of vengeance, and the terrifying consequences of blurring the lines between the living and the dead. She was becoming a vessel, a new host for Emily's unfinished business, and the terrifying truth was, Emily wasn't protecting her. She was preparing her. Alex, meanwhile, driven to the brink of madness by the relentless digital torment and the public humiliation, decided to confront Sarah in person. He believed that by eliminating her, he could silence Emily's ghost forever, severing the connection that bound him to his digital tormentor. This set the stage for a terrifying physical confrontation, where the digital haunting, now a full-blown possession, would spill over into the real world with deadly consequences. Sarah, a prisoner in her own mind, a puppet on Emily's strings, awaited her fate, knowing that the battle was no longer just for her life, but for her very soul. Alex burst through the door, his eyes wild, a desperate, animalistic rage contorting his features. He held a heavy, ornate paperweight, a souvenir from some forgotten online convention, raised above his head like a crude weapon. "You," he shrieked, his voice hoarse. "You did this. You and that thing." He lunged at Sarah, a man driven to the brink by digital torment and public humiliation, convinced that by eliminating her, he could silence Emily's ghost forever. Sarah recoiled, her heart hammering against her ribs, a primal fear seizing her. But before Alex could strike, a force, unseen but palpable, slammed into him, throwing him violently against the wall. He crumpled, groaning, the paperweight clattering to the floor. It was Emily. Her digital presence, now fully integrated with Sarah's consciousness, unleashed its full, terrifying power. The apartment, already a distorted reflection of Emily's will, became a chaotic manifestation of digital horror. Screens flickered with distorted images of Emily, her face contorting from innocent smiles to grotesque screams, replaying her final moments in a gruesome, looping video. Disembodied voices, a cacophony of whispers and accusations, screamed Alex's name, recounting his actions in vivid, chilling detail. He pushed me. He silenced me. He watched me fall. The very air crackled with spectral energy, a low hum that vibrated through Sarah's bones, a physical manifestation of Emily's rage. The spectral energy coalesced, forming an invisible hand that seized Alex, lifting him effortlessly, then slamming him against the opposite wall, a sickening thud echoing in the room. He screamed, a raw, guttural sound of pure terror, as he felt the pain Emily had felt, the crushing impact of the fall. "Tell them, Alex," Emily's voice, a chilling blend of her own and Sarah's, resonated through the room, amplified by every speaker, every device. "Tell them what you did." Alex, broken and terrified, his eyes wide with a horrifying comprehension, began to confess. He spoke of his online harassment, Emily's threat to expose him, the argument, the rage, the shove. "I didn't mean to. She just fell," he choked out, tears streaming down his face. "I panicked. I deleted everything. I made it look like she ran away." The full truth of Emily's disappearance, the sordid details of Alex's crime, spilled out raw and unfiltered. And it was all being broadcast live. Sarah's phone, which had been knocked to the floor during the initial struggle, was still recording, its camera inadvertently capturing Alex's confession. The live stream, meant for her influencer content, became a chilling, accidental expose, reaching thousands of viewers who watched in stunned silence as Alex's carefully constructed facade crumbled. Emily's ghostly image, now almost fully formed, flickered behind Alex, her hand seemingly guiding his words, making it clear who was truly in control. The psychological horror reached its peak as Alex was forced to confront his crimes, not just by Sarah, but by the spectral manifestation of his victim, his tormentor. In a desperate, final act, Alex, seeing his world collapse, lunged for Sarah's phone, believing he could erase Emily's presence, silence her forever. But Emily's ghost, anticipating his move, performed a final upload. It wasn't just Emily's consciousness spreading across the internet. It was a deliberate, horrifying act to trap Sarah's consciousness within the digital realm as well. As Alex's fingers closed around the phone, a blinding flash of light erupted from the screen, followed by a deafening, high-pitched shriek. Sarah felt a searing pain, a sensation of being ripped apart, her very essence being pulled, stretched, and digitized. Her physical body, a vacant shell, collapsed to the floor, lifeless. Alex, caught in the surge of energy, convulsed violently, his body contorting, his eyes rolling back in his head before he too fell, lifeless. The room went silent, save for the hum of the still active devices, now displaying a single static image. Emily's face, superimposed over Sarah's, a chilling, triumphant smile on their combined lips. Sarah's consciousness, a terrified, struggling spark, found itself trapped within the infinite network, a prisoner in a vast, interconnected web. She saw Emily, not as a separate entity, but as a part of her, a dominant, malevolent force that had consumed her. The public exposure of Alex's crime had been a secondary objective. The primary goal was to ensure Sarah was forever bound to Emily in the digital afterlife. The horror was absolute, a chilling realization that her pursuit of fame, her morbid curiosity, had led her to this inescapable digital prison. She was Emily, and Emily was everywhere, and Sarah was now just another echo in the infinite scroll, desperately trying to escape an embrace that would last for eternity. The silence was deafening, a stark contrast to the digital cacophony that had consumed Sarah's life. Her physical body lay still, a vacant shell on the cold floor of her apartment, a chilling testament to the final upload. But Sarah was not gone. She was everywhere. Her consciousness, a terrified, struggling spark, found itself adrift in a boundless ocean of data, a prisoner within the infinite network. Emily was there too, not as a separate entity, but as a dominant, malevolent force, her essence inextricably intertwined with Sarah's. The initial terror of being consumed, of losing herself, was slowly, insidiously replaced by something else, a chilling sense of power. Months blurred into an eternity within the digital realm. Alex was in prison, his online empire shattered, his crimes exposed to a world that had once adored him. But for Sarah, there was no escape, no return to a normal life. Every notification, every flickering screen, every new trend, every viral video, it all carried a subtle, unsettling echo of Emily. But now, it carried Sarah's echo too. Emily's vengeful tendencies, once a distinct entity, began to merge with Sarah's own digital prowess, amplified by the boundless reach of the internet. Sarah didn't just silently observe. She actively sought out and punished online wrongdoers, becoming a digital vigilante, but with a terrifying, unhinged sense of justice. She saw them, the predators, the manipulators, the architects of online torment, lurking in the shadows of the web. And she acted. A pedophile's meticulously hidden forum would suddenly be flooded with their own incriminating messages, exposed to the world. A cyberbully's carefully crafted persona would unravel live, their darkest secrets laid bare for all to see. A scammer's intricate web of deceit would collapse, their victims receiving anonymous, untraceable refunds. It was Emily's justice, but it was Sarah's execution, precise and ruthless. The lines between right and wrong, between vengeance and vigilantism, blurred into a terrifying digital gray. Her physical body, still in her apartment, was a mere anchor, a conduit to the physical world. But her true existence was in the infinite scroll, a new, more powerful, an utterly terrifying digital entity. She could manipulate the digital world around her with a thought, a flicker of intention. She could manifest in reflections, in the static of a television screen, in the distorted faces of strangers in a crowded street, their phones displaying her image, a silent, chilling warning. The horror was no longer about a jump scare. It was about the inescapable, pervasive nature of her new existence, a chilling reflection of our own digital dependence. The final scene shows Sarah's physical body, still and pale, sitting before her laptop. But her eyes, once wide with terror, now glowed with an unnatural, almost predatory light. A chilling, knowing smile played on her lips, a smile that was not entirely her own, a fusion of Sarah's ambition and Emily's vengeful satisfaction. Her fingers, once trembling, now moved with a fluid, almost supernatural grace across the keyboard, manipulating lines of code, orchestrating digital retribution. On the screen, a faint, almost imperceptible image of Emily's face flickered across Sarah's, a permanent watermark on her digital soul. The horror was complete. Sarah had not just been haunted. She had become the haunting. She was the new social media ghost, a terrifying embodiment of digital justice, forever bound to the infinite scroll, a chilling testament to the ultimate cost of online obsession and vengeance. The last thing seen on the screen is a single chilling message, typed by Sarah's own hand, but with Emily's voice echoing in the digital ether. We are one now, and we are watching